Module 9 now, automating worksheet tasks, which is a nice fancy term. But what we're going to say is that we're learning to use macros. And we'll be learning what a macro is here in just one moment. A macro, if you look on the top of the explanation in the little lesson, it's a named set of instructions written in VBA. It's Visual Basic for Applications anyway. It's a programming language that perform tasks automatically in a specified order. And the thing about a macro is once you make it, you can repeat the same steps over and over again just by clicking a button. It's very simple. We'll start out with just a couple of rules about macros. You're doing computer programming here. Very simple, well, doesn't feel simple, of computer programming. You're going to start your macro name. Every one of them has to have a name so you can find it with a letter. It has to start with a letter, not a number. The other letters of it can be uppercase, lowercase, or numbers, or underscore. Those are allowed. Other things are not. And then another rule is that instead of using a space, if there are two words, instead of using a space, you could put an underscore between them. And just to let you know where that underscore mark is, it's the shift key with the hyphen up beside the number 0 on the keyboard, way up at the top right. That's where it is. And then it's not taught in here and it's not required, but I will indicate to you without going into the programming background that it's a good technique that you will see very often. Instead of using the underscores, you would put all of the words, bunch them all together, but each first letter of the new word is an uppercase letter. And you'll see that's what we're going to do. There are just some rules you have to follow. If not, you'll get an error message. And then the second note I wanted to show you is on page 3 there, where it talks about, where it shows you the picture of how you should write out your macro planning. The reason why is because once you start, you better not make a boo-boo or you can just start all over again. So anytime you're doing computer programming, this is old way of approaching it and it still works. You start by figuring out what you want at the end. That's the output. And then you figure out what it's going to take to put into the computer process in order to make it occur. That's the input. And then you do the processing of it. So output, input, processing is the order. And if you look at the steps on page 9-3, you'll see that the description is essentially the output, calculates annual revenue. And then the steps go on to select cell A9, enter the total. And so that's what you have to type in. And then the processing is when you press the enter button and it turns it into a result. Then look at, they showed you some sample names of macros down there just so you can know. Just a few general ideas for you. And let's just keep going with the next section, which is to enable a macro. If you want to allow Excel to use macros, since they're highly susceptible to security risks of all kinds, like malware, they are shut off by default. If you want to use them, you have to turn them on. So try to do this whole lesson like in one or two little short settings. So you turn it all on and be sure when you're done, shut the whole mess off. Just leave your Excel program not using macros as a general matter. I've already opened the data file and I will have to enable editing as usual. One more thing that we have to do with when we want to use a macro is create a format of macro enabled worksheet. If you have a .xlsx extension, it will not use macros by definition. So we will go and change the format. So file, save as, because we're changing the name, changing the place, or changing the type, location, or the type, file save as, and instead of being an XLSX file, we're going to click the drop down list here and choose an XLSM, which is a macro enabled workbook. We'll choose that format, and then we have to change the name to something or other else. Well, underscore bonus. Underscore bonus. Okay. Now you can see up at the top that we have, oh, I lost the one, whatever, but it's XLSXM. SLSM. Now, wait. I have to show you one more thing. Look at this, and let me go get it from the other side. If you, let me go to the folder, downloads, okay. If you notice, I can see the extensions, file extensions, but you might not be able to, depending on the way you have your File Explorer set up. But if I come to View and go all the way down to the Show tab, then I can choose to turn on file name extensions. I'll shut mine off just so you can see what it does. See, now you can see them. Now you see them, now you don't. I have to get rid of them. There we go. And now you see I can't see the extensions. I can tell it has, I don't know what it is, something different drawn in there, an extra piece of paper or whatever it is, to indicate that it's a macro enabled, but that's way too much trouble for me. So I just leave mine showing the file name extensions. In order to enable the macros to work, we're going to have to change the security levels. And we'll do that by going back to the File tab, and way down on the left-hand side at the bottom is Options. In File Options, let me zoom in so you can see this menu bar. We have one called Customize Ribbon, which I will click on. And when I get to Customize Ribbon, there are two columns, if you will. We're going to use both of them at different times in this lesson. The first time we're going to use the Customize Ribbon on the right-hand side and scroll down enough to find Developer, and we will add the Developer tab. That's going to put a tab at the top, and click OK. Notice up at the top, now we have a Developer tab. Let me zoom in, show you what it looks like. We'll be using that code group. We'll be using those, and there are several others. Okay. And then on the Developer tab, now we're down on step 4. One more thing we're going to do is on the left-hand side, you see where it says Macro Security? We're going to choose Macro Security, and there are 4 options. I'm having a time with my Zoom It today, aren't I? There are 4 options. 3 of them prevent them from running. They recommend that you use either the Disable with Notification or Disable Except Digitally Signed Macros, depending on where you're working from. At work, probably you could get away with digitally signed. I don't know, your boss will know. At home, if you're doing things probably with notification would be appropriate. But we need to enable them, and notice that this says not recommended, potentially dangerous, but we need it for our exercises. So we will enable that, and be sure when you're done working, be sure to shut it back off to one of the other 2 options. Just to show you a couple of items, down on the left gold box, perhaps I won't actually show you all the way, but if you look in Visual Basic, well, I can do it quickly. In Visual Basic, on the Tools tab at the top, we're coming back to this window, but not in this lesson. And the Tools, you can have a digital signature, which when you're done, the last thing you would do is add your digital signature, and it certifies that it was made by you, and it can't be changed without a new digital signature. At work, they may do that. I don't have one, so there's no sense really in my showing you because I can't get any farther than that. And another notice is that they want you to be warned about disabling macros when you're done working with these lessons.